Putin has popped up again, always afraid that his people will forget him, and announced nationwide support. This happened at the Congress of the People's Front that declared there is unquestionably nationwide support for the special military operation. And here, let's note Putin wasn't lying, because in this criminal war, almost the entire population of the Russian Federation is indeed involved. Yes. After all, you can support the war not only with weapons and money, but also with your fear. For example, the fear of calling the occupation and genocide of neighbors madness and villainy, that too is a significant help to Putin. It's a substantial contribution to the madness that Russia is currently committing. And the Russian Federation, well, it's important to understand that aside from those who are afraid and behave primitively, there are still many people in Russia, and I say this as a great expert, who are engaged in this secret, extremely dangerous struggle against the war, against the regime. They are excellent at concealing themselves and, of course, provide invaluable help with information. I am not talking about them, but nevertheless, all right, the Russian Federation, through the efforts of at least 80% of its population, has earned a catastrophe on for all, as they like to sing, and it will get it history well. She's an old lady, and a rough one at that. She punishes, and she doesn't bother figuring out who's much more to blame, who's less, who's Shishkin, who's Mishkin, or who's Volodin or Jigurda. No, she strikes at the entire people as a whole. Well, if you watch the video, I'm posting this filth for you, right? The People's Front Congress, Putin's speech. It's clear that the true fans have gathered there, for whom Putin is a completely real deity. Because you'll have to take my word for it. As a specialist, they have absolutely religious expressions on their faces and absolutely religiously servile laughter, and the same kind of gleam in their eyes that you see at rituals, gatherings, and sectarian ceremonies. And of course, Putin can only be a deity for the feeble-minded. And as we can see, there are plenty of them too. They are strong and they dominate. And this is probably the saddest part, because without a doubt, the most tragic thing at the moment is the intellectual level of Russians who are willing to worship a deranged, gray little KGB officer obsessed with a thirst for killing. However, so much effort has been put into turning the majority of the people into idiots that the result we can see, it is not surprising. And when talking about the nationwide participation in cannibalism, Putin, well, he slyly keeps quiet about the fact that what we're really talking about, yes, they do support it, but these are lobotomized beings whose brains have been deliberately mutilated by the tools of propaganda. And unlike the beautiful gleaming stainless steel of neurosurgical dissectors, scalpels, rongeurs, the tools of propaganda are, it seems, invisible, intangible, yet the destruction they inflict on the mind is far greater than that of lancets or Dahlgren's forceps. And yes, I can tell you, at this point, of course, it's already irreparable. And Russia, yes, Russia has already earned the highest penalty. Well, obviously for the criminal war, but also it has earned this highest penalty for the criminal experiments conducted on its own population. Experiments compared to which the notorious Japanese Unit 731's actions are mere child's play. Well, however, we should also understand the Kremlin. It had no other path but to follow this road named after Dr. Mengele. We are faced with a fact the worship of Putin. A strict clinical fact. And if we're talking about real neurosurgery, it knows exactly which areas of the brain need to be extirpated. I apologize for the terminology. I understand it's a bit improper, but simply saying damage or excise doesn't quite fit. There's this precise, remarkable term extirpation. So in order to make a patient an idiot, which areas of the brainware would you target to make them a partial idiot? And we understand that propaganda is essentially the same as neurosurgery, only criminal. And the Kremlin has done everything possible to turn the majority of the people into idiots. We have to give credit to Kirienko. This task has been accomplished 100%, just brilliantly. What else could they do? They need support for the war. And in order to have 80% support for the war and for Putin, well, they need to turn at least 80% of the population into idiots. Yes, the brain is in general mutilated and in a much more sophisticated way. And here, look, Putin, of course, is some kind of absolutely phenomenal oddity. He himself understands perfectly well just how stupid, how criminally sadistic the people he elevates to the rank of, well, national heroes are, planning to name things after them. Schools, branches of the Nakhimov Naval School, street. And so after shuffling through all sorts of recently electrified corpses, Putin chose, out of all these dead men, the most criminal, the one most deeply implicated in pathological atrocities. He went ahead and posthumously awarded, for the second time, the Gold Star of Hero of Russia to the Deputy Commander-in-Chief of the Navy, General Gudkov. Even among the trench-dwelling orcs, General Gudkov was considered a bloodthirsty freak for his ruthlessness, including, of course, ruthlessness toward so-called his own, which naturally was what interested the orcs. And among other things, it was specifically Gudkov's 155th Brigade, which he commanded at the time, that following the personal orders of the commander, according to the testimony of captured Gudkov Brigade members, this 155th Brigade burned alive and beheaded captured Ukrainian armed forces soldiers. And it was also involved in the mass shootings of civilians in Bucha, Irpin, Hostomel, and so on and so forth. And now Putin, quite deliberately and fully aware of what he is doing, is going to immortalize the memory of this sadist in every possible way.